Hi, and welcome to Katie's Classroom, the 64 Keys of Consciousness. Today is the first class, and it is not live. I am pre-recording this for those that are interested in joining the entire series. We meet Mondays at what time am I meeting? Oh, shoot. You'll have to look at the link. I can't remember. 10 a.m. Eastern Time, I believe. So today, I want to talk a little bit about what you can expect in the 64 keys of consciousness. You can definitely expect me to forget a thought for sure. But more importantly, what is the framework? What do you need? Like, how do you participate? What do I get out of it? And why is this going to help me with leadership? Or how does this help me with leadership is a question I hear often. Becoming a leader is synonymous with becoming yourself, and that is my hidden agenda here at Al Professional Coaching. And Katie's Classroom is here to help give you agency and more autonomy so you can quiet the noise and really understand how to trust yourself again. So, the 64 keys of consciousness is using the human design wheel that you may or may not be familiar with. Really doesn't matter. It includes the I Ching, which is where the 64 comes from. So, we'll be taking a look at those, as well as what are the different systems that use these 64 keys of consciousness? How do they talk about these different ones? We'll look at a different key each week. 64 of them. So obviously we'll end up having 64 weeks together, but this is just the winter and spring semester. We will break at the end of June. No summer school. Nobody fails in my class anymore. When I was a high school teacher, I did have to teach summer school. So I'm not doing that anymore. So the first class that kicks off on Monday, very serendipitously, um, Martin Luther King's birthday is the holiday that we are going to kick off this class, which is the 19th of January for those in the US. And if you are familiar with him, he had this speech, I Have a Dream. And what is interesting is the 41st gene key will be activated on the 22nd of January. And so I've decided to bring the 41st gene key to the first place that we'll study is this key of consciousness. And the shadow of this consciousness in the Gene Key book is called fantasy. But when Richard Rudd first published an article on the 7 years of deconditioning around the wheel, which is what I'm going to use to guide our consciousness keys throughout this journey, with the exception of kicking off with the 41, when he published that, his shadow there, the not self is what he called it at the time, was called dreaminess. And so in the class, we're going to explore what is the reactive and repressive nature of fantasy or dreaminess. I'll share a few excerpts from the I Ching on how this was looked at in the spectrum of consciousness. And there are lines 1 through 6, which create part of this color. So there's not just a spectrum of consciousness in that it moves from through these lower level energies to the higher level, which is anticipation and emanation, as he calls it. But it's also looking at the different ways to experience this energy from a line 1 through 6 perspective from the I Ching, and the Book of Changes is what I'll be using to guide the conversation. In addition to that, whenever we look at consciousness, we got to bring in the animals. We got to activate the right brain. And so we'll also be looking at the 41 key of consciousness and the dream arc, which is also part of Richard Rudd's work, where he worked with several people across different cultures to create. And this animal that goes with the 41st key of consciousness includes the horse, which we are moving into the year of the horse in February 17th, the fire horse there to be precise. And in addition to that, it includes the 41st is not the horse off the top of my head, is it? No, sorry, the horse is part of the leapers, which is leaping into this new year. This one is the kangaroo. The 41st is the swallow, is the bird, which is like the vision key of consciousness. The life key is the mammal, so we get the kangaroo. You can think of what types of leaps a kangaroo might take ahead of us heading into the fire horse here, what leaps the horse might take. And then the fear key, the underworld, is the eel. And so I'll be providing some information on those, like animals, as well as the language that's in the Gene Keys and I Ching system, and also anything from human design and what it says in this gate as well. It's a great opportunity to have a conversation about what these might mean. If you're playing bingo at home and you have your own human design chart, if you have it in there, you can talk about like what your experience is in these different states of consciousness. I don't even know if I like spectrum, but that is the word that he chose when Richard Rudd wrote this. And so that'll be the first key that we look at. Your first class is always free, so you're welcome to come to that. And then we will kick off the following week. We will meet every Monday. There's 2 Mondays. We will skip one in February and one in May for Memorial Day weekend. And we will kick off with gate 3 because that is the first of the wheel in that deconditioning process that Richard Rudd also described in his writings. And I'm looking forward to just bringing everybody through that wheel of what it looks like to go like a full around the wheel in human design, and also the different themes in each of these. And so the first theme is disintegration. And part of why I was so drawn to this idea of, I don't think the deconditioning isn't the idea I was drawn to, but this idea that we move through cycles and that we shed and that there are sunsets and then there are new sunrises. And so often as humans, we think that the sunset and sunrise should look the same every single day. And that's just not the case for the universe. So we know it's not the case for our own personal sunsets and sunrises. And when you look at the 7 cycles, I believe this pulls from Carl Jung's work, you see just a natural 7 years that I've lived. When I look at my gene key of, oh yeah, this was a theme in this 7 years, this was a theme here. These were the things that disintegrated. These were the things that I had at the very end. So I think it's an interesting way to explore consciousness in not just in a circular way, because that is what it is. Whenever we think of spectrum, people are always thinking of like a long line versus recognizing it's this circle. And that's that circle of life, so to speak. So if there's any tools that you would want to get for Katie's classroom, I would recommend the Gene Keys book, the big thick blue book. However, I know he's publishing the Sage, which is an updated version with the lines, which would be probably my recommendation if I were to recommend it after it's published, because it will give you the color that I mentioned. But in either way, you can come with nothing. Ideally, it's something you write down a few notes, because I always feel like when Katie's doing a lecture, we should write some things down. But that's because I was a high school teacher. You're welcome to turn camera on or off. It will be interactive. I really enjoy hearing after the first class when you go out and you have some homework. I always enjoy hearing like, what was that experience like? And so even if you are tuning in because you can't come to the live classes, which I anticipate will be the case for several of people that are working in the corporate field, might just be me and a microphone sometimes. You can go into the group that I have on my webpage. You'll have your own login and you can come in there and you can get the videos, you can have comments and get to know people and have conversations. So just exploring, how do we make space for everyone? How do we make space for those that are caught in fantasy, that are in their reactive stage or their repressive stage? How do we embrace that within ourselves so that we can tolerate it in others? And as leaders, that's what we're being invited to do, is to model what that looks like in a very genuine, very honest way. My LinkedIn says I'm a professional truth teller, and that is a part of, well, sometimes the gift of arrogance is feeling like I can tell the truth. Sometimes we have to pull on these lower level emotions or consciousness as costumes that we wear because the party calls for it, right? You may not dress like a devil every day, but if the theme calls for it, you don't take yourself so seriously. You just wear the costume. And oftentimes, the reason we don't wear the costume of self-confidence is because we have confused it with arrogance. And if you were truly self-confident, you wouldn't mind being called arrogant or even being thought of as arrogant, because that would mean you're a leader and you're not consumed with your own propaganda or that of others. So, thanks for tuning in to the first introduction to the 64 Keys of Consciousness. Looking forward to going on this journey with you. If you join at any time, you're still going to get access to all of those that you've missed. It's the same price to no matter when you join because you're going to get access to everything, and we'll resume after break as well. It's $2.99, gives you access to 64 keys of consciousness, 64 weeks with Katie Eads. And again, it will be over a process of time because we don't have 64 weeks in a year and we're taking a few days off here and there. If you have any questions, reach out to me, Katie at owlprofessionalcoaching.com. If you have my number, text me there. I am on WhatsApp. If you don't know my number, you should go to my website because rumor has it you can find it there, and reach out to me if you want to sell me something. As always, I've enjoyed sharing my thoughts with you, and I look forward to seeing you in What's Katie Contemplating? The 64 Keys of Consciousness.